Café ride. Okay, exciting times. Our good friend Rachel will be joining us today to talk about stress, because who has not had that little awesome thing? So let me invite Rachel. Let's see. There we go. Let's see if she's able to join. So stress is our big topic today. Hey,
What up?
how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Fantastic. Just drinking some tea. Nice.
I got tea. I got a pastry. Got homemade
Wow.
apple butter. I'm good.
Wow. You are, well, I guess we're going to talk about self-care later, but you're obviously a master at it thus far.
Ugh.
Wow, this person will take 5 Pinarellos. Me too. No, I'm not.
Oh,
I
I
would
got
take.
you. I got you.
Yeah, no problem. I'll just order that right up.
Like, dilk those out.
Yeah, Jesus, expense them.
Yeah.
No, thanks so much for chatting. I'm excited to talk with you. So some background. I've known Rachel for a little while, since she was the soigneur on, I guess, Rally Pro Cycling.
Mm-hmm.
And you've also given me massages and heard all about the stress in my life. I've heard about the stress in your life. But that's part of what we're talking about today. So I would love it if you could take it away, maybe do an intro, who you are, what it is that you do here, and we can go from there.
Sure. My name's Rachel. I'm a licensed massage therapist. I have a bachelor's in exercise and sports science. Knew I wanted to be a massage therapist since I was like 13, which is ultra weird. It's like a funky little profession to pick out. Like kind of following what I enjoyed and what I enjoyed, the type of work I enjoyed doing and the type of interactions I enjoyed having with people just led me down schooling. And then I grew up with Joey Rosskopf. So he is kind of who I got connected into the pro cycling world with.
Okay.
I don't know if you, I don't know if you know Joey or if that name.
I don't think I know.
Yeah, he's on Rally now. He was the road national champ this year. And
Okay.
has 2 time trial national champs. So we just knew each other from Atlanta, and he kind of got into that world, and I got into the body work, and more specifically like movement rehabilitation. So
what does that mean?
So like physical medicine. I can't call myself a physical therapist because you need a doctorate to do that. But I learned under a lot of more licensed professionals, kind of efficient movement patterns, essentially. And more specifically, the mentors I learned under taught about developmental movement patterns. So you don't have to teach a human baby how to move, which means that there's software in the brain that dictates movement development over the course of 14 months. So if you look at 80% of babies in the world all follow this very specific roadmap. You like roll, and then you rock, and then you crawl, and like you practice walking like that. Everybody knows that roadmap exists. And there was a physiotherapist out of the Czech Republic that was like, hey, maybe that progression in these positions that they're in are important. And they started recognizing the neurodevelopmental connections between those patterns and how your movement develops. It's called dynamic neuromuscular stabilization, in case anybody's like, what is this? It sounds rad.
I will be Googling that later.
It is really cool. My clients just know it as the baby stuff because I use it a lot, especially if people's nervous systems are really hyped. Your brain recognizes these positions as very safe. And so they're really good as like if someone's in acute pain to pull people back to, because they may not understand, but like it's your brain understands, like a way to kind of bring things down.
Okay, so like how did you go from like developmental stuff and then into cycling where you're like a soigneur, and not only were you doing like, yeah, not only were you doing like all of the meal prep, like all of the like bottles and prep, and then after they're done racing, you're also doing like all of the massages for an entire team. Like, how did you do that? And like, I feel like your approach is very different than a lot where like you focus more on like the stress aspect and not just like, hey, my muscle hurts, but it's like, let's take your body from being amped to like coming down. So yeah, like what did that progression look like, just briefly? And then I would love to talk about like stress management. That's what I find very interesting. Yeah, everyone has stress.
Everyone. So that connection I will credit entirely to Joey. Like, okay. They had a race when he was on Hincapie before he signed with BMC. They had a race, Tour of the Gila, and I lived within driving distance, and they needed an extra Swanee. And I was like, cool, I don't know the bike race stuff, but I know recovery and I know body work, and like, I'm teachable. Like if you teach me that stuff, I'm good. And that's how I got into soigneering. And I knew a lot of people from college that were on the team as well. So it was really fun, and it was a different way of applying what I knew, and also travel, and it's like developing relationships with the athletes, which was really cool to me. Because I did have different perspectives to bring to the table. When I first got in it, I was like, I haven't raced my bike before, so like, what? And I learned from the guys, like, sometimes that was nice to not have, like, they could talk about other things, or like learning that that was kind of a nice perspective sometimes once we developed a relationship. Because I feel like a soigneur position, because it is so integral to professional racing, you need people who know that world. Okay. And like a lot of those soigneurs have been, they've raced previously because they know they've experienced it before. They know the needs and demands. Yeah. And that was something that I had to learn, is picking up on that sort of stuff. But at the same time, what I brought to the table was my knowledge of rehab and recovery and like that aspect of it. So it worked really well, especially with Rally, our head soigneur, Jose. And he is a rock star at the intricacies of a race and like needs and demands from a soigneur position. And I could bring the more movement rehab in case things crept up, because these athletes are traveling nonstop. They're racing. Like a bike is an unnatural position. Like
I was gonna say, like I just went to Steamboat, and I feel terrible getting out of my car after 3 hours, and then getting on my bike. I mean, like funky, like my psoas is tight and all of this stuff. So I mean, I wish I had I wish I had you helping me like take the car and the bike out of the body, and also just like the stress. Like travel is stressful, which I would love to just like chat about, like stress in general as it pertains to like cycling, like physical stress and mental stress. And so I guess like how do you define stress?
That's hard, man. Because stress isn't bad. Like it's our kind of capacity. Like stress is what creates adaptation. So like it's hard to start talking about that without being able to truly recognize that stress is why we adapt. Like you need it. I think like
that's the whole point of training.
Yeah, I think that like the term for that is eustress, which is good stress, where it motivate, like it's enough stress on the body that it motivates you to change and to
Yep.
push and do things. Um,
When does
as a
stress become bad?
I don't know if I would be the right person to define that. Because I think what it comes down to and what I play around with for myself is like listening. Like we're not really taught how to listen. And it's funny when you go to providers, because I do this too, like you want an answer of what to do.
Oh, 100%.
But when it comes down to it, it's like another person can't answer that for you.
Wrong. No, that's not the answer I wanted, Rachel.
But in terms of, I mean, obviously that's not the big picture, but I'm thinking of like, when do you know, like, should I rest right now? And it's like, that's developing a relationship with your body, which I think honestly, like, we're just not taught to do that. So it's like, cool, that's where you start. Like,
yeah.
listen, like actually taking the time to listen, like,
yeah.
what's going on here? And for some people, when your body has been through a ton of stress or trauma or pain, that listening is off and it's hard.
Oh,
because it, like in your body doesn't feel safe.
Yeah, totally. I think like the way I used to approach like an injury or something when I would go to a physical therapist or a doctor or anyone, it was like as if I were bringing my vehicle, my body, I was going to bring like my car into a mechanic's place. Or I was like, hey, this thing is broken.
What do I do with it?
Yeah, just fix it. Just whatever it is you need to do, just fix it. Because it's an inconvenience and I have shit to do. So like, let's get this. Yeah, like let's get this going. And I don't stop to like even think about like, why is it injured? Why did it stop working? Maybe there's like, because I think like the adage like stress is stress is stress. Like if I'm mentally stressed out, if I'm physically stressed out, like emotionally stressed out, I think our bodies probably interpret it the same way. And so
it's just
and so like I would be curious, for people that know that stress is stress and it's like, it's consuming them or causing problems, like how do you find that like touch is a way to bring that down?
Oh, I love that. I had actually a Facebook Live conversation with my business coach about the science of touch last year. But there's a woman that does research out of Florida. Her name's Tiffany Field, and she does very specific research around the physiological changes that happen with medium pressure touch, and that it like the way the receptors on the skin that it activates that are associated with the parasympathetic nervous system, and it decreases your heart rate, it decreases cortisol levels, it decreases your blood pressure, like things that they can actually measure.
Yeah. Like medium touch, could that be like my partner massaging my shoulders or?
Yeah.
Really? Yes. Okay.
Yeah, like that. And then I can't remember if it was her or like a Harvard study, but showed like the same thing happens with 20-second hugs.
Okay.
That like if you actually hold an embrace for that long, after you'll feel the other person, like if you actually kind of pay attention for the second, you'll feel both yourself and the other person past a certain point actually relax.
Wow, interesting.
It's really cool, actually.
It's so fascinating because I think I mean, like, how do you, like, when someone comes in, like, let's say this is me coming into you and we're going to, like, walk through. I'm like, hey, Rachel, I just want a massage, right? Like, I'm feeling stressed out. Like, what would you do for me? Like, how would you evaluate what that looks like? Like, can you tell I'm stressed out just based on how my body is reacting?
Yes. Yeah, but I think like I can't tell if that's something that's learned or it's something like a skill that I have learned over time. I'm quite perceptive to how people are moving and speaking.
Yeah.
I think I was gonna say I think you are as well. Like I don't know if that's just like a highly sensitive person type thing or like but if someone came in to me and they were like, I need to relax. Like I'm very stressed out. It would depend on if I would ask more questions, because I can just proceed with that, but depending on who it was, and like their level of comfort with touch. Because yes, touch is it's really good regulatory mechanism, and it's, I mean, fundamental for development, like emotional development, social development, intellectual development. Like it is a piece of humans. But what's foundational to that is the idea that it's perceived as non-threatening. So like in the Facebook Live with my business coach, we talked a lot about consent, because it's like all of those positive things that happen with touch, the decreased heart rate, decreased blood pressure, aren't going to happen if that touch is perceived as threatening.
That makes sense.
Or unwelcome, or like scary, anything like that. So like if someone came to me with that, then I have to gauge their relationship with not just touch, but me. And the best ways to do that is to give people as much control and like say as possible. Because I have worked with, that would be more of like a trauma-informed approach, because I have worked with people who have felt more threatened.
Interesting.
I see that a lot too, and like that's going to be trauma-based, but also neck injuries are very much like very sensitive to touch.
Interesting.
Like if someone's had like whiplash or concussions, or like
you see that a lot in the cycling. I feel like the concussion.
Yeah, their necks are very, like, people are very protective, because they're like, what are you about to do? And maybe that's just the nature of a whiplash injury, but also maybe they've seen providers that have done some more aggressive treatments.
That's so interesting, because I went to a massage place and I didn't realize he was a chiropractor and a massage therapist. And so he was doing this and then just like did the neck crack, and I freaked out. I was like, what?
It's alarming.
I had an app, and like the rest of the massage, and like I'm someone who is just like, oh my God, touch, like I just give me a massage, rub my back, anything. And that massage, I was like on edge that like he was just I was like so jumpy, which is just so interesting that, you know, you say that, and it was my neck. So now like I won't go, I was like, I don't want to go to anything that's a chiropractor, because I'm so afraid they're going to touch my neck.
Yep. And I get that a lot. Like I'll work with people who will say stuff like that, or they'll say that like they were face down and the person put needles and left, which is not like, to a provider that feels totally normal, but to a person that you don't know their experience or like how comfortable they are being there. Like being face down is a really not comfortable, like you're not in control when you're laying face down. And like with needles in your back and then being left, I was just like, that just input a lot of non-safety.
So I guess like, how would you, like, obviously I don't want you, like, you can't prescribe anything because you're not a doctor, and I don't want you to get in any trouble with like, here's a rule of thumb, take my advice.
Which most of this is like my own personal thoughts anyways, so.
Cool. So I think like, you know, let's say how would you approach, I guess, like if I were to come in and be like, I'm stressed out physically because I just did a huge training camp. How do I take my stress down? How would you like prescribe something for that versus like, I'm stressed out mentally, emotionally? What would you say? Like, what are the two things that you would say to those two different people, or is it the same?
It would be different. When I left Rally, I sent an email to the writers, because I learned that like a lot of people in general, and I've learned this just across the board and talking to more people that receive body work, they will receive a lot and not, like, it may not be what they want, but they won't say anything. And
what do you mean by that?
Like, it's like I'll even, because I do this a little bit too. Like if I get body work from somebody and I'm like, I don't need you to work that long there.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like that stuff.
Yeah.
Or like,
you're like, go to my feet. I want my feet rubbed. I don't want my
a lot
hands
of time
rubbed.
on my hands, please. And
Yeah.
so like sharing, you guys, you can do that. Like you should do that. This is your time and your performance,
Yep.
and your and a good massage therapist won't take that personally.
Yeah.
Because most of the people that I know that are massage therapists have a plethora of tools in their toolbox that they have access to, but they also kind of have a default of like,
Yep.
this is what I do mostly, but I can do all this other stuff. I just need like to know what's going on.
Yeah. They need it's like feedback.
Yeah. So that was one of the things. And then like, in terms of what I found, or my decision-making process with in a competition, was dictated by two main goals. And one was whatever's going to get you to sleep best, because that's where most of your recovery is going to be from, or a like very important piece of your recovery is going to be from.
Yep.
It's like whatever can kind of like get you to sleep better, which is a little bit different for everybody. And then a piece that I really tried to hammer in to increase that feedback and communication was whatever you think is going to help.
Yeah.
Because the placebo effect just proves that our perception has a physiological influence. And so if there is something, because athletes know their bodies really well and they've gotten a lot of different things. So it's like, I want to know what you have found works really well for you, because that's going to be a factor as well. Because I'm not the type of person that like digs really hard. Like if you come to me and you're like, make me hurt. And it's like, I know how to get into your muscles without making you hurt.
Yeah.
Like making you think you're hurting. You just slow it down. But if deep work is what you find works really well for you, I want to know that.
Yeah.
So yeah, if someone I didn't know was an athlete that came in tomorrow and was like, I just got done with this, I need to recover as much as possible, I'd ask a lot of questions about what kind of stuff has worked for them in the past, what they've got going the next few days. Like, are you trying to do something else? And like, it kind of depends on, are you in the middle of continuing to try and push? Are you at the end of your recovery and you can just rest? Because if you're done competing, then you're going to be like, refuel, recoup, like resting. But if you have to do something else and tomorrow, that's going to be different. Like you're going to let things down, regulate, and rebuild, but you still got to go.
Yeah.
So, and then if somebody's just like generally emotionally stressed out, that's usually craniosacral is my default, because it's non-threatening. It's fully clothed. It's super comfortable and relaxing.
And what is that?
It's a modality of like really light touch that depends on who you talk to in terms of why it works. There's some people more on the energetic side that will speak to energy movement, or there's the cerebrospinal fluid that moves between, or like is in your spinal cord. I may get like this anatomy wrong, but there's a rhythm with that cerebrospinal fluid, and it's like following that and trying to balance out the rhythms around.
And is it like mostly here?
There and down by your sacrum. But then like cerebrospinal fluid, you would feel the rhythm and feel the rhyme. Lots of time. Feel that throughout their whole body, but
okay.
Yeah, it's supposed to be tapping into like your body's own ability to heal, which is essentially getting your parasympathetic nervous system solid.
Got it. Yeah, I love when I find it so relaxing as like a scalp massage, or like even pressing pressure like here. I find that to be just like that takes me down a notch. And I would say, okay, well, before we end up heading out, but like what would you say, like, is
Seems
there a
like
way
this
that
is
like
all common
we,
sense. It should be common sense. I'm reading a comment. They're like,
oh, it should be common sense. Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
ideally. It's funny though, because I find that like some people are like, don't know that. And I'm like, oh, okay, maybe.
no, I think like I thought that was interesting. Someone commented and they were like, hey, this is common sense. But I think it's definitely not for a lot of people. Like I think, and especially women, that like we put our own self-care or like priorities last, and maybe not necessarily athletes, but definitely like women that maybe aren't athletes. Like I don't know if you're gonna if you're gonna like really listen and be like you're so stressed out, like maybe you're a mom, maybe you're doing like all this work and you're a mother and all these things, and like you don't take the time for yourself to like bring your stress level down so that like you
Yeah,
can continue functioning. And when you go to the massage, like I think because a lot of women are also, it's like a thing where you feel like a burden or guilty that if you're not getting the massage you want, I don't know if you're gonna say anything.
correct.
um
Yeah. Well,
yeah,
and
like yeah,
it's switching a little bit now, but massages were perceived most, it's like this like extra treat. And
yeah,
it's like, I think combined with the fact that our culture and society doesn't really promote touch nearly as much, which is one of the things that Tiffany Fields talks about in her research. Is she's like, they've observed American friends and couples in a public space, and in like a 30-minute span they won't touch, whereas if you go to other cultures and you do the same thing, you see them like grazing and touching and like,
yeah,
and those are like they help us regulate, like it,
yeah,
that's why that softer touch, like you're like, that helps. We are
yeah.
meant to co-regulate, we are meant to balance our nervous systems off of one another.
Oh, totally. Like I sleep better. This is like such a stupid little thing, but I sleep better even if I'm more uncomfortable and have more disturbances during the night. But if my hand is touching my partner during the middle, like when I go to bed, like I can just feel myself being like, oh, okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
And like that doesn't even make sense. Like I'm literally just like touching another human being.
Yeah. I think that's why I like talking about touch stuff here, because a lot of self-care is like this hyper independent, like take care of yourself, like regulate yourself, like get yourself away and make sure that you can kind of deal with your shit. And it's like, actually, we are not meant to do that alone.
Yeah. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, you're like, sorry, it doesn't. Yeah, I think that's why like community people that have like a community and that are social and like interact and like touch and like, I think like I was watching a documentary on like older people that like dance together,
Woo.
and like they live longer because like it's consistent touch throughout their entire lives. And it's I think it's like a really overlooked thing where I'm guilty of it. Like I I use a massage as like, I'm gonna treat myself. Like we're like, we shouldn't look at it as like an indulgence,
Yeah.
as like a guilty pleasure, where it's like, no, this will help the rest of your day and like the rest
Yeah.
of the week potentially.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, between that and like good body work can help with fascial movement, it can help with body awareness, it can help with, I mean, sometimes it's just nice to not have to do the rolling and the stretching yourself. Like,
Yeah.
but to know too that like there's more benefit to it than just like someone poking around on your muscles.
And then, okay, well, before we go, is there anything that like you do or you tell people to do that like I could do on my own to just like take the stress down a notch, whether it's like massaging my temples, having crystals around me now. Just
Honestly, I mean, this person mentioned it in here, like being able to do focused breath work is probably one of the fastest ways to work with your, and like regular meditation, but depending on like the type of person you are, sometimes that recommendation falls on deaf ears. But meditation is phenomenal. And then outside of that, like making sure you're getting outside, like I like, this may be like a weird thing, but I find that the world we've created is very fast paced, like technology and work, whereas our systems are from the natural world, which is at a much slower pace. So even if you just like get around trees or something, like it feels easier to recognize like, oh, my body does move at a slower pace.
Yeah.
It is more aligned with like this tree growing than like this iPhone.
Yeah, my like immediate access. I'm like, I need connection. I need the fastest internet. But like my body is like not.
Like, yo, our stuff actually moves way slower than that.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't allow for
that's something I've noticed for my body. It's like easier to regulate nervous systems outside and sunlight and all that. And then outside of that, making sure you get good sleep. Like for real, that is one of the most beneficial things that people can do that I think a lot of adults, like we just kind of brush off if it's too hard or like isn't something we're good. Like we don't get good sleep. Like what do you do?
I'm not a good human being if I don't get good sleep.
I'm not either. Like I'm also, when it comes to my body, a big problem solver. Like if something feels off, I want to know why. So I could not deal with poor sleep being something that lasts for a long time. I used to like not really sleep super well, but again, I went down like a huge rabbit hole of what can I do to change this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you have anything else you would like to impart, any wisdom you would like to impart on anyone that will watch this later on?
You don't have to hurt, and your body doesn't have to be an enemy of some kind. There are people out there that can help you. Like, just don't stop looking. Yeah. That's what I mean. Like, I just wish I could tell people, like, you're not supposed to be in pain.
Yeah.
Like, in any capacity.
Yeah.
There are people out there that can help.
Yeah, I think, no, that's super important. I think we, especially like as athletes, like it's like no pain, no gain. And like that works until a certain point, and then it becomes like a really dangerous mantra. Yes. And we just think like, oh no, this is just part of it. And it's like, not all the time. Like it doesn't need to be.
Yeah, not constant. Yeah. Just like you said, part of being an athlete is knowing that, yes, pain is an output, and being able to push past it to get your result and to get the performance that you want is what sets you apart. Yeah. But our bodies are supposed to move through these performance and recovery cycles, and like it doesn't have to be constant. And like talk about it more. Like I watched the Café ride with Katie Quay, and it was like, yes, like this epitomizes the talk about it. Go find people. There's someone out there that can help you. Keep trying.
Yeah. No, that one was so good. So good. The pelvic floor. I'm gonna do a video on the pelvic floor eventually, but that's another topic. But anyway, thank you so much for chatting. You are great. I have you've definitely helped me out with either just talk therapy. I feel like a massage therapist is also a therapist half the time. It's a very intimate space, right? Like, I mean, you get undressed, you let someone touch you, and then
see you later.
Yeah, you see you later. But like you feel so comfortable and vulnerable that like I open up to those people at a certain level. And so one, thank you for providing that space and being like a wealth of knowledge, and telling us that we can downregulate, and that self-care is not an indulgence, that it's quite mandatory, and physical touch is incredible and essential.
Yeah.
So I appreciate that. And thanks for joining. You're my neighbor down in Denver, so please come up, visit anytime.
For sure. For a bike ride here soon.
Yeah. Awesome. Thank you so much, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Okay. Have a good day.
Bye. You too. Bye.